Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. So you want to know how AI is changing the game in global politics and economics? Well, get this. It's not just about robots taking over the world anymore. We did some digging and found out AI is already super embedded in our lives. It's making decisions that impact you every single day, probably in ways you don't even realize.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how subtly AI has just woven itself into our systems. We're talking governments using AI to analyze mountains of data, like
Yes.
from social media trends to economic indicators,
Yeah.
and then using those insights to make decisions about everything from policy to crisis response.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of wild to think about. Remember the 2023 floods? AI was actually used behind the scenes to analyze social media posts
Yeah,
and identify the areas that needed help the most. It's crazy.
exactly. It's like having an extra set of eyes, a superpowered analyst that can see patterns and connections in data that humans just wouldn't be able to grasp on their own. And this is just the beginning. Imagine AI helping your local government figure out the best ways to address issues in your community, from traffic congestion to public safety.
Okay, that makes sense. But I have a confession. I'm a bit of an online shopping addict. So tell me, is AI behind those eerily accurate product recommendations, the ones that seem to know exactly what I need even before I do?
Oh, you got it. AI is definitely the mastermind behind those personalized online shopping experiences. Those algorithms are analyzing your browsing history, your purchase patterns, even social media activity, to figure out what you're most likely to buy next. It's incredibly effective.
Sure.
But it definitely raises some questions about data privacy, how much information these companies are gathering about us.
Right. It's a little unnerving, but also kind of impressive. But AI isn't just limited to online shopping, is it? What about the world of finance? How's AI shaking things up there?
Well, think of Wall Street. Where billions of dollars are changing hands every minute. AI algorithms are already analyzing market data in real time, making lightning-fast trading decisions that can impact everything, from stock prices to interest rates on your loans.
Whoa. So even if I'm not some high-flying investor, AI-driven financial decisions could still impact my wallet. That's a pretty big deal. But isn't there a risk that these algorithms could make things unstable, like causing a sudden market crash or something?
It's a valid concern, and one that regulators are definitely grappling with right now. There's definitely a risk of unintended consequences when you have algorithms making split-second decisions that can move massive amounts of money. But on the flip side, AI can also be used to identify and manage those risks more effectively, so potentially making the financial system more stable overall.
Okay, so there's a lot of potential there, both good and bad. But AI's influence isn't limited to the financial markets, right? What about its role in shaping the future of governance? That's where things get really interesting.
Absolutely. Imagine a world where AI helps governments monitor compliance with regulations. From environmental protection to financial transparency, AI could analyze massive data sets to identify potential cases of corruption or fraud, making governments more accountable and efficient.
So it's like having a digital watchdog that can keep an eye on things and make sure everyone's playing by the rules. That sounds pretty promising, actually. But couldn't this also lead to a situation where governments become too reliant on AI and lose sight of the human element?
That's a great point. It's something we need to be cautious of. The goal shouldn't be to replace human judgment entirely, but rather to use AI as a tool to augment our decision-making abilities and help us govern more effectively. It's about finding the right balance between human oversight and AI-powered insights.
It's almost like AI is a double-edged sword, with the potential for both tremendous good and some unintended consequences that we need to be aware of. But I'm curious, what are some specific examples of how AI is already being used in governance around the world?
Well, take a look at Singapore, for example. They're using AI to analyze traffic patterns and optimize traffic flow, which has actually helped reduce congestion and improve air quality. And in Estonia, they're using AI-powered chatbots to provide citizens with quick and efficient access to government services, like renewing passports or applying for permits.
Wow. Those are some pretty innovative applications. It sounds like AI is being used to solve real-world problems and make life easier for people. But what about the potential downsides? I've heard a lot about AI and job displacement. Is that something we should be worried about?
It's a legitimate concern
Uh,
and one that we need to address proactively. The reality is that as AI becomes more sophisticated, it will inevitably automate certain tasks that are currently done by humans. Jobs that involve repetitive manual labor or data entry are likely to be most affected.
so are we talking about a future where robots are flipping burgers and filing our taxes? It sounds like there's a lot of uncertainty about how this is all going to play out.
There is. And it's not just about blue-collar jobs. Even white-collar professions, like accounting or legal research, are starting to see the impact of AI. But I think it's important to remember that AI can also create new job opportunities, ones that we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like when the internet came along. No one could have predicted all the new jobs that would emerge in fields like web development or digital marketing. Maybe AI will create a whole new wave of jobs that we can't even imagine yet.
Exactly. The key is to be adaptable
Hmm.
and to focus on developing skills that are uniquely human and that AI can't easily replicate. Things like creativity, critical thinking, and complex problem solving.
So it's not about trying to compete with machines, but rather figuring out how to work alongside them and leverage their capabilities to our advantage. It's like a partnership where each side brings its own strengths to the table.
That's a great way to put it. It's about collaboration, not competition. And as AI continues to evolve, we're going to need to keep learning and adapting to stay ahead of the curve. But that's what makes this such an exciting time to be alive. We're witnessing a technological revolution that has the potential to reshape every aspect of our world.
It definitely feels like we're on the cusp of something big. But with all this talk about AI and its impact on our lives, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. Where does all this fit into the grand scheme of things? How is AI shaping the future of humanity as a whole?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there are no easy answers. But I think it's important to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
So it's really up to us as a society to decide how we want to use AI and to ensure that it's aligned with our values and goals.
Exactly. We need to be having these conversations now. While AI is still in its relatively early stages of development, we need to be thinking about the ethical implications of the potential risks and benefits and the long-term consequences of the choices we're making today.
This is starting to feel less like a deep dive and more like a deep responsibility. It's clear that AI has the potential to solve some of the world's biggest challenges, from climate change to poverty to disease.
But it also has the potential to create new problems or to exacerbate existing ones if we're not careful. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's being written right now. And we all have a role to play in shaping it.
Well said. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored how AI is already influencing our lives in ways we might not even realize. From the products we buy to the way our cities are managed, we've talked about the potential benefits and risks of AI, the challenges of job displacement, and the need for ethical considerations. But we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into some specific examples of how AI is being used in politics and economics around the world.
I'm ready for the next level. Let's get into the specifics.
All right, let's do it. First up, we're going to take a closer look at the world of politics and how AI is influencing elections, shaping public opinion, and even helping governments respond to crises in ways that you might find surprising. So buckle up because things are about to get really interesting.
I'm intrigued. Let's get into it. All right, so let's jump into the world of politics. Where do we even start?
Well, elections are always a good place to begin. Remember those old school campaigns with like town hall meetings and door-to-door canvassing? Those days might be fading fast. AI is totally changing the game when it comes to political campaigning.
You're right. Things are evolving so rapidly. AI is being used to analyze voter data, social media trends, even things like economic indicators and weather patterns. It can help campaigns figure out which voters are most likely to swing an election and then target them with personalized messages. It's like having a high-tech crystal ball that can predict voter behavior.
Wow, so it's almost like AI is becoming the ultimate political strategist, helping campaigns figure out exactly who to target, what issues to focus on, and how to craft messages that resonate with specific voters. But isn't there a risk that this could lead to manipulation?
That's a crucial question, and one that ethicists are debating right now. There's definitely a concern that AI could be used to spread disinformation or to exploit people's biases and fears. Imagine a scenario where an AI system is used to create highly targeted, emotionally charged messages that play on people's anxieties. That's a potential misuse of AI that we need to be very careful about.
Right. It's like anything else. AI is a powerful tool, but it can be used for good or evil, depending on the intentions of the people using it. We need to make sure that there are safeguards in place to prevent AI from being used to undermine democracy.
Absolutely. Transparency and accountability are going to be essential. We need to be able to understand how these AI systems are making decisions. and to hold the people behind them responsible for their actions. But AI isn't just being used to win elections, it's also changing the way governments respond to crises.
Yeah, that's right. Think about how AI could be used to analyze data during a natural disaster or a public health emergency. Imagine an AI system that could track the spread of a virus in real time, or predict which areas are most likely to be affected, and help allocate resources more effectively.
That's exactly what's happening in some parts of the world already. During the COVID-19 pandemic, AI was used to analyze data from social media news reports and even cell phone location data to track the movement of the virus and predict where it might spread next. It also helped healthcare providers optimize the distribution of medical supplies and allocate hospital beds.
That's incredible. So AI is literally being used to save lives and protect people's health. It's a far cry from like those dystopian sci-fi scenarios we sometimes hear about. But what about the impact of AI on governance in general? How is it changing the way governments operate on a day-to-day basis?
One area where we're seeing a lot of activity is in the use of AI to improve the efficiency and transparency of government services. Think about all the paperwork and bureaucracy involved in dealing with government agencies. AI could streamline those processes, making it faster and easier for citizens to access the services they need.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Remember the time I tried to renew my passport? It was a nightmare of forms and waiting lines. It would be amazing if AI could make those kinds of processes smoother and less frustrating.
Exactly. And some countries are already making progress in this area. Estonia, for example, has been a pioneer in using AI to digitize its government services. They have a system called X-Road, which allows different government agencies to share data securely and efficiently. This has made it possible to offer citizens a wide range of digital services, from filing taxes to registering a business, all through a single online portal.
Wow. So they're basically using AI to create a more user-friendly government, one that's less bureaucratic and more responsive to the needs of its citizens. That sounds pretty appealing, actually. But aren't there concerns about governments becoming too reliant on AI and losing sight of the human element?
There are definitely concerns, and it's important to have those conversations. The goal shouldn't be to replace human judgment entirely, but rather to use AI as a tool to augment our decision-making abilities and help us govern more effectively. It's about finding the right balance between human oversight and AI-powered insights.
Okay, so it's not just about replacing humans with machines, but about figuring out how to best use AI to enhance our capabilities and create a better world. It sounds like there's a lot of potential there, but also a lot of responsibility.
Exactly. AI is a powerful force, and we need to be thoughtful and intentional about how we use it. But let's move from the realm of politics to the world of economics. How do you see AI's impact there?
Well, we've talked about the potential for AI to create new jobs and to automate existing ones, but what about its impact on the way businesses operate, the way we invest our money, the way the global economy functions as a whole? That's where things start to get really interesting, and maybe even a little bit scary.
You're right. It's a vast and complex landscape. Where do we even begin?
Let's start with the financial markets. We talked earlier about how AI is being used for high-frequency trading, making split-second decisions that can move billions of dollars. But AI's influence goes far beyond that. It's changing the way we assess risk, make investment decisions, and even manage our personal finances.
It's like having a personal financial advisor available 24/7, analyzing market trends, assessing your risk tolerance, and recommending investment strategies tailored to your specific goals.
I wish I had one of those. But seriously, this level of personalization could be really helpful for people who don't have the time or expertise to manage their finances on their own. But isn't there a risk that these AI systems could be biased? Or that they could make mistakes that cost people a lot of money?
There's always a risk, just like with any financial advisor. But AI systems have the potential to be more objective and data-driven than humans, which could actually reduce the risk of bias or emotional decision-making. Of course, it's important to make sure that these systems are designed and tested properly, and that there's human oversight to ensure that they're being used responsibly.
Right, so it's not just about trusting the algorithms blindly. We need to make sure that there's a balance between human judgment and AI-powered insights. But AI's impact on the economy goes far beyond just finance, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Think about how AI is being used to optimize supply chains, improve manufacturing processes, and even develop entirely new products and services. It's revolutionizing entire industries, from agriculture to healthcare to transportation.
It's mind-boggling to think about all the potential applications. It seems like AI is going to touch every aspect of our lives in one way or another. But what about the potential downsides? We've talked about job displacement, But are there other risks that we should be aware of?
One concern is the potential for AI to exacerbate existing inequalities. If the benefits of AI are concentrated in the hands of a few wealthy individuals or corporations, it could widen the gap between the rich and the poor. We need to make sure that AI is used in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
That's a really important point. It's not enough to just develop the technology. We also need to think about how to distribute its benefits fairly. But beyond the economic implications, there are also broader societal concerns about AI, aren't there?
Definitely. One of the biggest questions is how AI will impact our sense of humanity, our values, our relationship with technology. As AI systems become more sophisticated, will we start to see them as more than just machines? Will we start to trust them more than we trust ourselves?
Those are some pretty deep questions, and I don't think anyone has the answers yet. But it's important that we're having these conversations now before AI becomes so integrated into our lives that it's impossible to turn back.
I completely agree. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's up to us to decide what role we want AI to play in our lives and
Yeah.
to make sure that it's aligned with our values and our vision for the kind of world we want to live in.
Well said. I think that's a good place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground from AI's influence on elections and governance to its impact on the financial markets and the global economy. We've talked about the potential benefits and risks, the challenges of job displacement, and the ethical considerations we need to be aware of.
It's been a whirlwind tour of AI's potential and its impact on the world. But we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore, especially when it comes to AI's impact on our individual lives and our sense of what it means to be human in a world where machines are becoming increasingly intelligent.
That's where we'll pick up in part 3 of our deep dive. So stay tuned for more insights and thought-provoking discussions about the future of AI and its role in shaping the world we live in. See you soon. All right, so we're back, and we've talked about AI's impact on like the big picture stuff, like politics and the economy. But now I want to get a little more personal. How is all this AI stuff going to affect like our day-to-day lives as human beings, I mean? It's kind of mind-blowing when you really stop and think about it.
Yeah, it really is. We're talking about tech that could like fundamentally change how we work, how we interact with each other,
Yeah.
even how we think about ourselves.
Right. It's way beyond just having a smarter smartphone. It's almost like AI is forcing us to redefine what it means to be human in a world where machines can do so many things that we used to think were like uniquely human.
And that raises a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if AI can automate so many of the tasks that we do for work, what does that mean for the future of jobs? Will we all be out of work, or will AI create new opportunities that we haven't even thought of yet?
Yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It seems like the jobs that are most vulnerable to automation are the ones that are like repetitive or routine. But what about jobs that require creativity or critical thinking or emotional intelligence? Are those safe from the AI takeover?
I think those are the skills that are going to be most valuable in the future. AI is really good at following rules and processing information, but it's not so good at things like empathy, intuition, or imagination. Those are the qualities that make us human, and those are going to be in high demand as AI takes over more routine tasks.
So it's not about trying to compete with AI, but figuring out how to work with it and like use its strengths, almost like a dance where we're constantly adapting and evolving alongside technology.
Exactly. It's a partnership, not a competition. And the more we understand about AI, the better we'll be able to deal with all these changes. But it's not just about jobs. AI is also going to have a huge impact on how we interact with each other.
I've noticed that already. It seems like everyone is always on their phone scrolling through social media, and it's all curated by algorithms. It's like we're living in a world where our reality is being filtered through AI.
Right, and that has both good and bad sides to it. On one hand, AI can help us connect with people who have similar interests and discover new information and get access to things that make life easier. But it can also create these echo chambers where we're only seeing info that agrees with what we already believe, and that can make us feel isolated and disconnected from the real world.
It's almost like a double-edged sword. AI could bring us together in ways we've never seen before, but it could also push us further apart.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to think about how we're using AI and make sure it's helping us live the way we want to. We need to ask ourselves things like, what kind of future do we want to build with AI? How can we use it to make us feel more connected instead of less? How can we be sure it's being used ethically and responsibly?
Those are some big questions, and I don't think anyone really knows the answers yet. But we need to be talking about these things now, before it's too late to change direction.
I couldn't agree more. The future of AI isn't set in stone. We get to decide what role it plays in our lives. and make sure it fits with our values and the kind of world we want.
Well said. We've covered so much in this deep dive. We've talked about how AI is already changing the world, the good and the bad, and how important it is to use it ethically. And we looked at how it affects politics, economics, and even our own lives.
It's been quite the journey. And I think we've only just scratched the surface. But one thing's for sure, AI is here to stay. And it's going to keep shaping our world in really big ways.
So what can we do to get ready for this AI-powered future? What advice would you give to our listeners who are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this?
Well, first, don't freak out. AI isn't going to take over the world tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's happening slowly, and we have time to adjust. Second, keep learning. Learn everything you can about AI, what it can do, and how it might affect us. The more you know, the better you'll be able to handle these changes.
That makes sense.
And lastly, don't be afraid to ask questions and join the conversation. The future of AI isn't going to be decided by a few tech people in a room. It affects all of us. So we all need to be part of figuring it out.
I think that's a great point. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of AI. It's been a really interesting conversation, and I hope everyone listening got a lot out of it.
It was my pleasure. And to everyone listening, keep learning and asking questions. There are tons of possibilities out there, and AI is just one of the tools we can use to make the world a better place.
Absolutely. And until next time, stay curious, everyone.